So much about this team's been such a bummer since the end of the season in Baltimore. And I'm here to share, entering the weekend, what I think is at least one significant ray of sunshine. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. I'm going to take you back to when these guys were 10-3. One of the common subjects that I had at the time, and before that time, leading into it, was I think it's a good football team. And then I kind of graduated to I think it's a very good football team. And then by the time it was 10-3, and there'd been some other boxes that seemed to be checked, I at least left open the possibility that it could be even more than a very good team, and that it actually might do, damage in the playoffs. I held to that for the most part after Philadelphia, saw some things in that game that still looked competitive with what I felt was one of the better teams in the league. And then, but if I rewind the clock to not just what I was saying or even what I was thinking, but what I was feeling about this team back then, was more than anything that it had some good players. And guess what? It still has some good players. And if you had to make some kind of choice, some grand overarching choice as a general manager between you get to have all these players or you get to have all these coaches, you'll take the players every time. Every time. Is the roster perfect? No. I was saying that at the time. Has the roster been filled with enough young, high-end guys from recent drafts? Wow, no, not at all. But if you and I went right now on both sides of the football, 1 through 11, and then again 1 through 11, you would, I don't care how cynical you happen to be about the state of the franchise, you would come away with more that you like than what you don't like. And that's what was reflected in 10-3. And that was real. And that is something that I will happily carry into 2025, no matter how little change happens to come over these players' heads. You want to do it with me? We can do it. All right. But just remember, clean slate here. Just forget the 10-3 and then forget the 0-5 and just look at the players. Let's do the offensive line as a group. It has issues. But if you're going to have an O-line with issues, it's at least nice to have one that's really young. It's going to be even younger next season. And from there, it's even better to have pedigree kids. You've got 2 first-rounders on the bookends, a second-rounder at center who looks like a real keeper. And you've got Mason McCormick, who was able to break in as a rookie. There's some good character there as well. Let's see what comes of it. I would rather have that than where the line was 4 years ago when everything was a patchwork quilt from left to right. I'm fine with the tight ends, both of them. I know Pat Freiermuth doesn't do it for some people because they're waiting for him to be Travis Kelce. He's not that. He has more in him than he's shown. That flashed through at times near the end. Darnell Washington is still a work in progress. I don't have much good to say about the wide receiver, so this is going to be the part that, that is the other less than 50% of this equation for me. I'm not sure I want George Pickens back on my football team. And as much as I love Calvin Austin, he's got to show me a little bit more Zay Flowers to his game. He's got to be able to find open grass, make people miss, and get production that way as opposed to just running conventional wide receiver routes and trying it that way, because more often than not, he's going to get overmatched there. I am guardedly optimistic about Jaylen Warren as either a 1 or a 1A, just needs to stay on the field. Everyone knows how I feel about Justin Fields. Don't have to go over that again. On the other side of the ball, I'll take an aging but still blessed core of TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and yes, Minkah Fitzpatrick. I would just like to see him applied in ways that allow him to become more involved, more engaged, and more of the Minkah that we were used to when he wasn't starting every snap 30 yards off the ball. I'll take those three guys. I'll take Keanu Benton if he's left to go after the quarterback as opposed to trying to recreate Casey Hampton and a version of the nose tackle position that stopped existing in the NFL about a decade ago. I will take an inside linebacker trio of Patrick Queen, of Peyton Wilson, and you'd better believe he'll be back, Elandon Roberts. Joey Porter left me wanting a little bit more, but I'm not about to put him on the negative side. Deshaun Elliott, Minkah's partner, outshone him. Outshone most everybody. What a wonderful acquisition Elliott was. What you're left with is right outside corner and nickel. Lots of people want the team to draft at right outside corner. Yeah, I want them to draft there too. I just don't know that I want my first rounder going into that position. And then nickel, respectfully, is a position that you can fill in the summertime. If you happen to not believe in Beanie Bishop for whatever reason, and I didn't understand why they didn't. There. What was our percentage? What did we bat? How did we do? A lot more good than bad, right? When we come back, J1Q. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George is a personal injury law firm in Western Pennsylvania that represents injured people in automobile accidents, workers' compensation cases, and medical malpractice claims. The attorneys at Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George pride themselves in doing what they say they're going to do. It's important to them that when they make you a promise, they keep that promise. And this law firm has been keeping promises for over 80 years. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has been AV rated. That's the highest rating a law firm can receive for legal ability and ethics. And the lawyers at the firm have been designated super lawyers, that's a real thing, for over 15 years. Rare combination there. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has offices in Cranberry, Newcastle, Beaver Falls, Butler, and Elwood City. Learn more about them at lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. Again, that's 888-842-5454. Today's J1Q comes from Kevin, who asks, DK, do the Steelers have exit interviews with their players? As frustrated as the fans were, wouldn't the players be frustrated enough to open up to management and let them know the changes are needed? Whether it's coaches, schemes, plays that they don't like, that kind of thing, would that get discussed? I'm surprised these guys would be biting their tongues. Yes, the answer is they have exit interviews, and they have exit interviews for every player on the roster. That goes from your most veteran guy like a Cam Hayward. They actually would really value hearing what Cam would have to say in such a setting. But one thing about exit interviews, they're not really like tattletale sessions. They're not going to ask you, and I've heard this from numerous players, to say, so what did you think about your coach? Do you think he know what he was doing? What do you think about the head coach? You know, me. It just doesn't happen, okay? What's going to come out of those sessions is going to be a lot more aimed at the player. It's going to be the positional coach having a lot of words, in particular for what he wants to see from the player in the summertime, but then even carrying into the following season. He wants there to be at least a vague, broad sense of what the goal is for that player. And then from there, how are we going to work together to make that happen? And the questions that get asked, and by the way, it is the coaches who are asking the overwhelming majority of these questions from what I've been told, they're pointed, you know, they're not aimed at broader schemes. They're aimed at what do you need from us as a coaching staff. What do you need to become a better player or a more consistent player or a healthier player or whatever the subject might be that carries the conversation? One funny thing about the pattern of questions that I've picked up on over the past however many days it's been since Baltimore is that I get the sense that everybody's trying to find some kind of smoking gun from somewhere that'll blow up in Mike Tomlin's face or the coordinator's face or the coach's face in some form. It's not coming. They ask questions also of me of, what do other writers and what do other executives say about the way the Steelers are run? Because they're looking for something, anything that they feel they can throw into this big stew and then eventually drop Tomlin into it as well. It's not coming. It is not going to be there for you. There is one person whose opinion in this matters, and it's not yours. It's not mine. It's not that of some other outside, expert person or any of these players. It's just not. The only opinion that counts is whose, and that's already tacitly been expressed because Art Rooney made sure in less than 24 hours from the conclusion of that game that everyone knew that he's keeping his coach. That's it. That's the beginning and the end of that dialogue. And when Rooney does meet with reporters, and I'm expecting that'll happen in the pretty near future, you're not going to pick up on so much as a negative syllable about Tomlin. You'll hear negativity about the way the team hasn't gotten it done for a few years and about how all these things snowballed on them to lose their final 5 games. But what you won't hear is a single specific thing that he'd like to see Tomlin address. That's just the reality. I've heard from quite a few of you in recent days bemoaning that these recent episodes have gotten you down. I'm not here to get you down. I'm also not here to be unrealistic. And this isn't ever about taking sides or sticking stubbornly by any single stance just to show you how smart I was, 8 months ago or 2 years ago or whatever. That's not it. If the Steelers had improved upon 10-3, if they had even taken a couple of those games and they'd gotten to the playoffs and they'd put forth some kind of battle against whoever it was that they'd have faced, and remember that they would have been the AFC North champions, so they would have had a better seeding. They might even have gotten a win. That's what would have been reflected here. I'm not overthinking how I go about this. And I'll take this further. If this season had gone exactly the way it went, meaning 10-3, then 0-5, and then the embarrassing performances in the final 2 games, and there had been any minuscule subatomic display of accountability, anything, then, there'd at least be something. But there isn't anything yet. There isn't. And I'm not about to, pour whipped cream on a cherry on top of this. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We'll be back with another one of these on Monday.